The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
All right, here we are. It is time for the Bronx Buzz. We have a really good show for you, as we always do. My good buddy, Michael Hinman, who's the editor of the Riverdale Press, is here in the studio with us. We will be joined by the editor of the Norwood News right after he's done. And that's how we're going to do it today. As you know, the Bronx Buzz is the program where we talk to Bronx writers, Bronx editors, Bronx photographers, Bronx video journalists, give you an idea of what's going into the news that you see and read and hear about every day. Michael Hinman, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me back on.
And talk about thanks. Who's giving thanks here, baby? Where are we? They put my TV show, Bronx Talk, and BronxNet's production of the debate right on the front page.
You got your best side there, Gary.
Yeah, right. You got me right back there. And then on the inside, a real full analysis of the debate itself. So what'd you think? Just open-endedly, what'd you think of the program, and what'd you think of the debate between Jeff Klein and Alessandra Biaggi?
I don't know how you could fit all the issues that are happening in the senatorial district in 30 minutes, but
you can't.
You know, I mean, I know it's not the presidential debates, but at the same time, there's a lot of issues that are happening locally, and especially, I think, you know, with this particular Senate race, with Jeff Klein being the former head of the former Independent Democratic Conference, and a lot of the questions that are with that. I think there's so many questions that that could have been asked. There just wasn't any time to do it.
You actually pointed up, you know, I measure what people tell me afterwards. I hear from advocates, I hear from all kinds of journalists and other people. And one of the things that kept coming up, why didn't you ask about this? Or I think the Bronx Chamber of Commerce said we had a white paper on state issues. You didn't incorporate that as well. I mean, I think we're getting a fire message there with you here, but we're okay. They're testing. You could just include everything. Of course, me as the person who ultimately decides what goes on there, you got 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought we did okay, frankly.
Yeah.
I thought we got as much in there. I mean, we talked about the IDC, we compared their relative levels of experience. We talked about housing and real estate, which was one of the issues. We talked about the Hunts Point road project. We talked about socialism, which is a question that's out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you kind of do the debates are a little bit interesting from like how a journalist approaches an interview. Like if we were just sitting down to interview them, we usually would, start with the softer questions first, get everybody warmed up, then hit them with the hard questions.
Oh,
so it was really kind of fun. You just very first question was right down the middle.
Well, I mean, listen, we make this program like people get to find out what's inside. You get to find out what's inside. I believe if I do that, then I establish a certain sense of groundwork that. Because I only have 30 minutes, there's no time to get into it,
yeah.
That they know that this is serious business, and that is somewhat intentional. Plus, I make sure in every case, if there is that kind of a difficult question, that I ask each candidate a balanced one. I thought we did. This one lent itself very, very well.
I thought it all came together very well. And in the Lehman studios, that's the first time I was over there. They're really nice.
Oh, they're gorgeous. Yeah. BronxNet. I mean, you had been on this program, which is a smaller studio, but BronxNet has done an unbelievable job in coordination with Lehman College. I thought that what you wrote still felt like you didn't think Senator Klein resolved the issue of the IDC in that debate, and that it still either bothers you or you think it's still out there.
Well, I mean, I think the question's always going to be there, because the IDC could come back at any time. I mean,
even though he denied it.
Well, politicians can deny things all the time. I mean, how many times do politicians deny they're not running for something, and then all of a sudden they are, and it's like the worst secrets. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping that the senator would not reestablish the IDC.
If he's reelected.
Yeah, maybe some people like the IDC. Maybe it really helped get some legislation through. I don't know. It's tough to tell. It's just, for me, it's tough to, that if you elect a Democrat or a Republican, that if you elect somebody to represent you in a certain way, that they should go to Albany and represent you in that way.
Do you buy his explanation that we did the best we could, that even if I was aligned with traditional Democrats, we would have gotten the same issues with progressive legislation like the DREAM Act and whatever else?
Well, he is right that, with the IDC, with the Republican majority, assuming that Senator Simcha Felder, stayed caucusing with the Republicans, yeah, he had a seat at the table that maybe the Democrats wouldn't have had otherwise. So maybe that helps get the voice out there. But the problem is that you're still empowering the same Republican chairs who aren't even going to hear half of these bills that want to come through. So you can sit there and say you support them all you want, but if you know that it's not going to go to committee, and you're never going to have to actually prove that you support it, it's a little bit of a different story.
What about her viability as a candidate? The campaign is enthusiastic. She has many supporters. Certainly all the Indivisible group supports her. Groups support her. People who may be frustrated with Senator Klein want to change. What do you think of her as a candidate? Personally, I think she's a very viable candidate. We don't always get that in some of these big races.
Yeah, and it's nice that she's had state level experience. That she's had experience with different issues that are going on, working with the governor's office, working in other places. But one thing, she's never been in an elected office before. And state senate's kind of a step, usually you kind of work your way up to it. I'm one of those people that believes that you should kind of start at the smaller level, work your way up, but you don't always have to do that. And so for me, I kind of wish that she would have a little more elected experience. But at the same time, I do think she knows the issues, and I think she knows what she wants to accomplish.
She's running a very strong campaign. I would say, from somebody who sat in that seat or stood at that podium for almost a quarter century, I would like to see her on her second televised debate.
Yeah.
I thought that she came across well, and she actually hit some really good points. She obviously didn't back down to anything he said. I thought her presentation will be stronger the next time because she's smart enough, she's articulate enough.
Nerves. Of course, there's nerves in that. You going on TV, it's probably not something she's used to doing. Something I'm not used to doing.
I'm so intimidating, I know, as your host. Anyway, thank you for the coverage, and it's a great read. People who are interested in the race, make sure you check out the Riverdale Press. You'll find it online. If you don't live in the neighborhood or get the copy, but why not subscribe? The other story I want to ask you about, and you and your big mouth has become a bit of an issue, and that's this whole idea of Community Board 8 actually spending money on a location for a meeting. Review for us what happened, what your perspective is, and then we'll talk about what some of the dialogue
Well, there was an issue where, we were dealing with an expansion of the Hebrew home at Riverdale, a large expansion. They want to build a continuing care retirement community, which is kind of like, like a step from, your kids move out and you're kind of retired to nursing homes, like kind of that middle step where you can still have that independence and still be there. They're very popular all throughout the country, not in New York City. So Hebrew Home is trying to build one of the first ones in the city, but they're doing it in an area that's
very sensitive land.
Yeah, very sensitive land. It's right on the Hudson River. It's right in a neighborhood with a lot of single-family homes. So there's a lot of concern with the neighbors around there. But in order to go through the city process, the city planning process, you have to meet certain criteria. So the community board failed to do that in one of their meetings. They made a mistake. They didn't let everybody speak that was supposed to speak, and they have to do that as part of the process. So they had to hurry up and schedule another meeting at the last second. Right. Unfortunately, the only place that they said that was available that met their needs was the Riverdale Temple, which charges $1,300 for a 4-hour meeting.
For the use of the space and
and it's not unheard of for community boards to pay for space. Community Board 8 hasn't done it in at least 4 years that we've been able to trace back, maybe even longer. So it's a bit of an unusual expense. Not really an issue with the expense. It would have been nice to maybe talk about it, but the problem that we reported on was the fact that it wasn't publicly disclosed that this amount was paid. This was an unusual expense. They hadn't paid this in 4 years.
Why does that matter?
this is taxpayer money. Taxpayers.
So you should know that they did that.
Taxpayers.
You meaning the public.
Yeah, the taxpayers are the ones who put in the money. They're the stakeholders.
Right.
It's their money. They have every right to know exactly how that money's spent.
What would have been did they hide that?
I don't know if they necessarily, they just didn't talk about it.
What would have been a proper way to disclose that?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is the day after they signed the agreement, there was an executive committee meeting, which is the chairs of all the different committees. They get together, they kind of, it's like a pre-meeting.
Right.
Nobody really goes to it. Maybe the media, and that's about it. Maybe a guest or two. They have it in their little tiny conference room. But that would have been a perfect place just to bring up, like, hey, by the way, we had to get to space. This is the only one available. We had to pay $1,300. And you know what? I bet you nobody, even I would have been like, oh, okay.
So is there a long-term issue here, a concern about, gee whiz, if they didn't mention this payment, are there other payments? Or are you just kind of reminding them it is your responsibility to be upfront?
Well, part of it is a reminder. I mean, it's part of what the media's job is to kind of help keep government in check.
Don't we know?
But also at the same time, you know, one of my concerns when I was interviewing the chair, Rosemary Ginty, is that her belief was that it didn't need to be publicized because they had already made the decision. That for her, if they hadn't made a decision yet, we talk about it publicly. But in this case, they'd already made a decision. So what's the point? And to me, the point is that you have to have the chance to let the public review it. Even if it's after the fact, they should all have the right to have an opinion, whether it's supporting it or be against it or in between or don't care.
Or have it, you know, I'm just thinking about it. So I'm on the board of my cooperative, and so I know that, you know, when we go around the table and do the various business of what has transpired over the last month, it would come up somewhere that somebody say, oh, by the way, we had the meeting, we had the hearing, we did have to, they would say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry to tell you, we did. It was the only choice we have. Probably the manager, the building manager would say, I had to spend $1,300, so everybody knew it.
Yeah. You're
saying that, do you think they deliberately did it? Or?
No, I don't think they did. I mean, I don't think there's anything.
All right.
I don't think there's anything like that. It's just that I just think that it's something they just feel that they don't have to disclose, but I think they do.
It's no surprise that Michael Hinman and the longstanding values of the Riverdale Press have stood strong with media against the attacks on the media from the president. There's an editorial here. You wrote your own op-ed piece. We've got about 20 seconds. You want to make one sentence statement about the importance of why we need free and you know, media here in the country?
Because otherwise, if you don't have a free media, then you have nobody checking what's happening in the government. We represent the people with the government. That's what it is.
Michael, you are just so great. It's having you here and talking about the stuff. And certainly, you're even greater because you put my picture on.
At least the back of you.
Yes, it's fine. And you didn't quite get the bald spot, so that's good. Thank you. Really, we love having you here. We love having you in the Bronx. The paper is just going great. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
See you next time. All right, Michael Hinman, the great Michael Hinman from the Riverdale Press. Taking a break, and then I won't tell David Cruz that I said nice things about Michael. I'll say the same thing. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa, master!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
it's Ava, and this is Tess from Vivo's Do It Your Selfie, where we recreate the hottest looks from today's biggest music videos.
After cleaning out our closet, we have a lot of clothes we don't wear anymore.
Like this old t-shirt.
It's not garbage, it's actually a brand new rug.
And to make it, all you need to do is cut, tie, and glue.
Cut the t-shirt into strips.
Tie the strips into knots.
And glue the knots to the bath mat. I love it. Give your garbage another life.
And recycle.
Hey there, back with you on the Bronx Buzz, and we are right now going to say hello to our buddy David Cruz, who's out there in the field somewhere. David is on the streets of New York somewhere, so if you hear any background noise, that's just part of the game. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, Gary. How you doing?
We're doing well. David, of course, the editor of the Norwood News. So let's start with the debate. You weren't there, but you watched it, I know, on TV. What are your thoughts about the 34th senatorial debate between Jeff Klein and Alessandra Biaggi?
Well, I definitely felt that both candidates came pretty prepared in the sense that they came with their platform of ideas. Of course, Klein was running on his, was banking on his years of experience, whereas Biaggi was definitely kind of banking on someone, telling voters to basically put your money on someone new rather than just the same old. And, this was a really interesting debate in terms of establishment politics versus progressive politics. And I thought that Klein really tried to make the point that he is a true Democrat. And Biaggi definitely came across as wanting to be the progressive, and progressive in the sense of just abandoning all the like the more center left kind of proposals and go all the way full tilt to the left.
Do you or did you sense a winner in the debate, or do you have a view of it like that, or was it? I mean, I know what I think about it, but I'll let you talk first, and then I'll tell you what I thought about that.
Well, I mean, I did notice that Biaggi did have pretty interesting ideas, although I think those moments where she was giggling didn't really necessarily help her case. I mean, she came across as a little bit too, too laid back, especially as she began to settle into the debate. She was not necessarily, seated well. It seemed as if she was kind of taking it a little bit more of taking a very laid back approach to it. And I know maybe I'm just nitpicking here, but
I think that's
pretty
fair.
glaring.
Yeah, well, you know what else? I just mentioned to Michael Hinman that I thought that I would like to see her on her second debate, because this was the first time, as far as I know, that she's ever done this kind of a thing, and I think the second time around should be better. My thought was, and in a way it's the same kind of vernacular that they use for presidential debates or, larger national debates. I thought she needed a knockout because he's got a very strong base of people who support him. And while I think she moved the needle and made some points, I don't know that she really got that knockout, that the people who are concerned about him with the IDC and some of those other issues, I don't know if she brought anybody new over to her side. You know what I mean?
No, I hear what you're saying. It seems as if the people who are already in the Biaggi camp were there, and those who are with the Klein camp were there. I didn't really hear too much in the way of new proposals by Jeff Klein, though. I mean, I did hear a lot on his record in delivering financially, but obviously that was through his deal with as the IDC leader,
yeah.
the chair, exactly. And so, whether or not he'll deliver the next go around, it's just hard to say. But he was pretty much leading on his past accomplishments, and I guess he's looking to see whether or not they can carry him to the future.
I have one thing to mention, which is now going to be the first time we're going to mention it in public, is that this week we were to do the debate for the 84th between Carmen Arroyo and Amanda Septimo. The Assemblywoman has declined the invitation to participate. So as per our rules, we will be doing a half-hour interview with Amanda Septimo, and that will be on Bronx Talk this week. The week after, there is an open seat, and there are, I believe, 4 candidates. All 4 candidates will participate, and that's for the 87th Assembly District, and we will have that debate also. So there you go. That's our programming schedule. Dave, you have been, basically, you were the one that broke the story, so to speak, that Andy Cohen is potentially interested in being a judge and therefore is ready to well, I guess he'll step down, but that's his next step. And then, of course, there's the potential race for his seat afterwards. Talk to me a little bit about Councilmember Cohen, what makes you think he wants to be a judge, and then when he is term limited out, what the prospects are for that race.
Well, Councilman Cohen, just based on people that I spoke to, he's always been well-liked. I've never heard really a bad thing said about Cohen. He's approachable. He seems like a very, he genuinely wants to help people.
I think he's an efficient legislator. Let's put that there.
Absolutely.
May agree or disagree with some of the things he's done, but I think he works hard, and I think he takes what he does seriously. I happen to be one of his constituents. I've seen him in action. I think he's actually a credible and efficient legislator. So let's put that on the table.
Despite his hard work, it doesn't look like legislating was his true passion. His true passion is being in a courtroom. And I mean, this rumor has been longstanding for quite some time, except now, after speaking with like 5 other people and also just having to seeing kind of like the political machinations taking place, it was pretty glaring that Cohen was looking to get out. And so now with him, and I did approach him too. He said, if it happens, then I'll be ready for it. If it happens this year, I'll be ready. If it happens next year, I'll be ready too. And so regardless, it looks as though he really has his sights set on being a judge. Now, how that will happen likely is going to be the same route taken by Darcel Clark, where the Judicial Convention ended up nominating her after Robert Johnson had effectively stepped down. And so this opens the door for potentially a special election, probably sometime in, as early 2019 as possible. And so therefore you may have a couple candidates, and you already did. I mean,
wait. Before you go there, so you're saying that because I was thinking, he will step down in 2021 when he's term limited out. But you're saying it might come up sooner than later, and that's why the next dialogue is an important one, because there already are a couple of candidates out there.
Correct, exactly.
Oh,
he's looking to really move very fast, and so he will effectively give up his seat. And so right now, there are 2 strong candidates, in my opinion. You have Eric Dinowitz, who is the son of Jeff Dinowitz, and who is also the district leader for the 81st Assembly District. And then you have Daniel Paternak, who's an attorney by trade and who's ran before for a different seat, but he didn't win. And so those 2 candidates have been kind of really hitting the pavement already. Yesterday, Eric Dinowitz essentially led a news conference that's kind of where he's trying to sort of test the waters a little bit. And so it was a news conference on an elevator that he and a couple of the community residents are looking to install in Norwood. And it's just, the thing is, it's pretty glaring, the fact that Eric Dinowitz wants to be in front of the camera now, more so than ever before.
Was there any question, or was there any comment directly about him being a candidate, or is it just one of those worst-kept secrets because everybody knows that that's really what he's, quote-unquote, being groomed to do?
Right. It was one of those worst-kept secrets. After speaking to a couple people after the news conference, it was pretty clear they knew that this was just an attempt at trying to get the younger Dinowitz to be at the forefront, as opposed to his father, who was just on the sidelines. And he was on pretty much decide throughout the entire time of this, 30-minute news conference.
Right.
And I did ask him shortly after. I said, is this all part of a larger plan to just put yourself out there? And then, of course, he gave me the line that he says he really wants to help people, and he really wants to.
I get that. Well, anyway, I want to ask you about something else that you're involved with today before we move on. But I will say that if, in fact, I mean, we don't know if there will be other candidates at this point, and certainly anybody who wants to run should. But if it's Dan Paternak and Eric Dinowitz, that is a fascinating, for us pundits, that is a fascinating competition. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting.
Two well-qualified people who are, have been involved, and of course you'll have, the Ben Franklin Club on one side. It'd be very, very, very interesting. Anyway,
it should be noted real fast that Daniel Paternak was also at that same news conference yesterday.
I'm sure he was.
He was in the background.
Anyway, you were at a meeting about the city charter revision, and you actually have some news out of that. And what you told me prior to the show, I thought was fascinating. Why don't you tell us what you think?
Well, right. So the commissioners for the city charter commission, yep, they met. They met today, and essentially they're calling for changes to the New York City's constitution, so to speak. And so one of the stipulations is that instead of having lifelong memberships on community boards where people can just reapply over and over again, they're calling on term limits.
Wow.
So, and the most you can do, according to them, would be 8 years, and then you would have to leave the board and have a vacancy for about a year before you reapply again.
Wow. So if they replace you on the board, you have to wait a year. What is driving that? Do they feel like there's too much old school and they want to get more new people in? I mean, that would be
correct. Exactly. That's essentially it. So the commission took testimony over the last couple of months from residents throughout the city. They said that, the city is changing and sometimes there's not enough minority voices on these boards. And so therefore you would want to have new blood constantly to help really just drive the conversation.
Fascinating. Now, 8 years is a long time, but these are not professional positions, and for community people, sometimes it does take a little while to get in there and be able to really, make some plans. That's a fascinating thing. Now, at what point will there be, I guess there'll be a proposal and then it goes to the general public to vote on it?
Well, this would be on the November ballot.
Wow.
And it will be effective April 2019, as people are actually getting their...
Is it now confirmed that is going to be on the ballot, or this was just a dialogue about it?
No, the thing is, they are going to finalize the questions that will appear on the ballot next month, although it has a really strong chance of being placed on the ballot.
David, you've done, I think, almost as well as Michael Hinman did. I didn't want to pit you one against the other, but you're both just really, really great friends and great guests and really providing tremendous service to the borough of the Bronx. Thanks, and we'll keep reading the Norwood News.
Thank you, Gary.
See you, all right. You can hear the traffic behind them. All right, thank you, David. All right, that is it for the Bronx Buzz. What a great show! I'm inspired now about civics and about our debates that are coming up. Make sure you check out Bronx Talk on Monday nights, and BronxNet will also have In the District. You'll be able to get your information about all the candidates. So that's it. Good night.